Hey, what's up, everybody? Pat here again, episode 25 of SPI TV. We are continuing our month of books that I've read. I've just been reviewing some books here on SPI TV. I also have a book club. You can find it at patsbookclub.com. You can sign up for totally free. And every month I email out a new book. Sometimes I get early access to books that are coming out as well, and I just share the insight I learned from them. Today we're going to be talking about Ask. This is a book that you've probably heard me talk about a lot recently, both on Periscope and on the SPI podcast, because in episode 178, I interviewed the author, Ryan Levesque. And this book has been one of the most impactful books in my business in a very, very long time. The teachings in here are really determining my future here and also the future of SPI and the kind of content that I'm producing here for you. And I learned quite a bit through the survey results that I wasn't doing my best to serve you. So in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what's inside this book and also reveal some survey results for you as well from the recent survey I ran with over 5,000 respondents. Here we go. So before I share some of the survey results with you, I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into this book here. Now, the first survey that Ryan talked about in that episode, and of course, I highly recommend you read this book. You can find it at smartpassiveincome.com/askbook. smartpassiveincome.com/askbook. You can actually get it for free. All you have to do is pay for shipping and you can get it delivered right to your door. You can also pick it up on Amazon as well if you'd like. But the most important thing, the thing that I worked on and where I got the survey results from, was about this thing called the Deep Dive Survey. And this is a really important survey that you need to ask your audience. Now, the thing is, you might know what your audience wants, but if you might know, you don't know enough. You need to know for sure who your audience is and what it is that they're looking for. What is it that they're struggling with? And also, what is the language that they're using too? And that last part is really important because that's going to help you determine the headlines for emails and subject lines for blog posts or vice versa. And also the copy that you're going to have in your sales copy for whatever it is that you're promoting as well. If you want your audience, if you really care about them and you want them to take action, you need to run a deep dive survey. And it had been 5 years since I had ran any sort of survey on SPI. So to have 5 years of new people coming in and not really understanding who they were, I felt terrible after I got these results. But I also was very excited because I know now what I can do to better serve you. And again, I'm going to get into those survey results in a second. But let's talk about this deep dive survey. The most important part of it is the very first question that you ask. And it's a question that could be phrased similarly to, what is the number one thing about whatever it is that you're talking about that you are struggling with the most? This is a super important question because the answers you get back, and actually I got a lot of answers that were literally paragraphs in length. And could you imagine just what is said there and how important that is to me so I can better understand who my audience is, who you are, and the language that you use. It is crucial. And if that's the only question you ask, then that's great. Now, you can ask more questions afterwards, and I did in my survey, and I'll, again, tell you what those things were and what the results were. But it is crucial that you ask, what are you struggling with? And when you do that, like I said, you understand more about who your audience is. That's why these multiple choice questions, they're not always the best questions to ask. Now, there's a couple other strategies I want to talk about. There was a strategy we talked about in the podcast, which is really interesting. Ryan suggests putting a prompt at the end to actually leave a phone number if you'd like to get a call to discuss some of the answers. The reason for doing that is because you can actually understand who is it in the pool of respondents that is actually kind of, I don't want to say higher level, but maybe just the answer is more weighted because that person shows that they would be even more interested to work with you. So you can actually look at those people's answers and actually score them more. There's a scoring process in here for some of the answers that you get, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So in terms of the deep dive survey, again, the goal is to have your audience tell you what they're struggling with. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is they say, hey, would you buy a product about this? Or they frame the question in a way that kind of leads them in a direction that doesn't get their audience to open up. And this is especially helpful if you're just starting out. Now, you might be wondering, if you're just starting out, how do you actually get survey respondents to come in? I had a big audience, so I was able to get over 5,000 respondents. How does somebody who's brand new get replies? Well, Ryan talks about this in this book as well. And you can do certain things like, for example, pay somebody who has an audience, an influencer, to actually ask that question, and then you get those results back. Or you can do paid advertising to a landing page. You can actually pre-qualify by asking survey questions on that landing page as well to be able to begin to create buckets. And that's the most important thing out of this survey is through looking at these answers to this question and also other follow-up multiple questions, you begin to divide your audience. And that's a good thing. You begin to divide them. Even if you're in a very specific niche, you will begin to see that there's certain types of people in your audience. And what this will help you do is understand these products and these courses, the blog posts, who are they made for in your audience, and also in your email sequences more specifically. And this is the biggest impact it's had on me so far because I'm in the middle of changing over my email service provider, which you'll hear more about in the next month here in October on SPI TV. It is helping me understand who's in my audience, and then I can segment that audience in my email list and serve them emails that are particularly just for them. And you'll see this becomes very clear when you start to understand what my survey results were. Now, one other point I want to mention is this really cool, interesting thing called the "Do you hate me?" email question. This is actually the subject line that he uses that gets a lot of high click-through rates. And when you bring people through an email sequence, for example, and you are pitching them on your product, you're trying to get them to take action, they get to the end and they haven't taken action yet, because you can set your emails up in a way for when they do, they get taken off that list. But if they get to that very last email, you can say, "Do you hate me?" Now, you might want to not phrase it that way. It kind of depends on your niche as well. But essentially what you're asking is, hey, what was it about me, or what about my offer that you didn't like? And those answers that you get from that question as well, which is all going to come automatically through your autoresponder sequence in your email service provider, is extremely, extremely valuable. And I thought that was really interesting. I've never implemented anything like that before, but it's this and so many other tips like this in this book, Ask by Ryan Levesque, that are golden for you, so that you don't have to guess anymore. And that it takes the guesswork out of this, so you know what to do, and then you can just take action on that and actually see the results. Ryan has helped so many other businesses. He's helped mine, and he can help yours too. Okay, so some survey results. I actually asked quite a bit more questions than Ryan would suggest, because I know I have this great relationship with a lot of you already. I have a big audience, and I figured a lot of them would want to take the time to answer these questions. And with over 5,000 respondents, I was correct. So with over 5,000 respondents coming from all the different places, the blog, the podcast, SPI TV, my email list, here's what we have. Now, I did take some demographic survey questions. For example, I found out that the audience is mostly male, 56%. So it's not skewed too far in one direction or another. Half the audience is between 25 and 45 for SPI. So that's good insight. The gender split stays mostly constant throughout all the age groups. And so the interesting thing about this is that this stuff doesn't really matter in this case. And it's funny because a lot of times when you talk about demographics and segmenting your audience and your advertisements, we all talk about what age group are they in or what gender they are. Sometimes you have to dig deeper than that to understand exactly who your audience is. Okay, so here we start to get into some of the big results from the survey. 30% of the audience does not currently run an online business. So 30% of the respondents don't even have an online business. But that's what I talk about how to do. And then 80% of the audience, including that 30%, actually makes less than $500 per month. So I asked some income questions, and I found out that 80% of the audience makes less than $500 a month. This was a big eye-opener to me. I mean, I knew I had a lot of beginners in my audience. I didn't know it was this much, but this totally and radically changes how I approach the content, the types of courses, the types of books, and the types of messages I send to you as well. And that doesn't mean I leave out that 20%. It just means that I know who I'm speaking to, but if I segment correctly, I can speak to both in the right way. So then I started to ask some questions about the kind of business activities people did. So the people who had a business, what kind of activities did they do? Now, most said that they do blog posts and social media more than anything else in their business. Only 44% actually use email marketing. So that's actually very interesting. But half would like to learn more. And actually, that was the most surprising thing about this entire thing, was that most people, in terms of choosing from a list of things that they could potentially learn more about to help their business, want to know more about email marketing, which is why in the entire month of October, we're going to talk about email marketing. You can see how this is already having an impact on what kinds of content you see and how I can help you. Only 16% of the people who took the survey actually have a podcast, and only 10% manage virtual staff. Now, that's also very eye-opening, because those are two things that have helped me more than a lot of other things that I've been doing. But for a lot of people, they might not understand that that's really important, and that's where I have to come in and make sure that that's apparent and also help them manage those things. Okay, now a couple other interesting things we did and takeaways we got from Ask and Ryan Levesque was we calculated, or Mindy actually went in there and searched. So she found the responses to that struggle question that were longer than any of the other ones. So the ones that had, for example, more than 100 words in it. We looked at those people's responses, and there was a really interesting correlation between the people who responded longer than others and everything else that they had to say. For example, this group, which we called the thoughtful group because they had long responses, they are less likely to read the blog by about 5 or 6%, but they are more likely to listen to the podcast by 12%. Which is really, really interesting. They're also more interested in learning about information products and e-commerce than anyone else, and they struggle significantly more with trying to do too many things at once. So that's some really interesting takeaways. And finally, I had asked a question at the end, similar to that phone number one that I talked about earlier, but I essentially asked, hey, would you travel to San Diego and spend $1,000 to hang out with me? I would have never thought to add this question, but my team and Ryan suggested I do this. And it was really interesting to see what happens with the people who said yes. This group is statistically similar to the general response pool, except for one key difference, the people who actually said yes. They are far more likely to consume audio and video content than the blog content. So what does that tell us? That tells us that the podcasts and the videos actually are generating an amazing relationship with through video and podcasting. We're able to make an incredible connection where people actually want to spend time with you. So for those of you for the 16% of you who aren't doing podcasts, perhaps you could better yourself by actually putting yourself out there and creating a real relationship where people would actually want to hang out with you and spend more time with you and actually spend money to be with you, whether it's for an event or a course or a coaching call or anything like that. They're also more likely, again, the travel group, to struggle with perfectionism by about 5 or 6 points. So anyway, just a lot of interesting information. There's a whole slide deck that my team prepared for me in terms of some of the findings, and I'll reveal more of that over time. But again, I just wanted to show you the power behind running one of these surveys and what you can learn from doing something like this. So again, pick up Ryan's book, Ask. You can find it at smartpassiveincome.com/askbook. And all you have to do is pay for shipping and handling. That's very free otherwise. But also I want to mention my book club, patsbookclub.com. Now, if you were on my book club a month ago, you would have seen an email from me saying that there was a coupon code to get this book for free, shipping and handling included. And so there's some benefit to getting on Pat's book club. So go to patsbookclub.com. I not only share a new book with you every single month that I've read and I enjoy and I want to share some insight with you, but I often get these books much sooner than other people, and I have exclusive deals like this as well for you. So sign up now, patsbookclub.com, and I'll see you there. And I'll also see you in next week's episode of the SPI TV show, or SPI TV. I never said that before. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. See you next week.